So I got away. I got to my aunt's house, and I was scared. I was so scared. I had been traumatized so badly. Like, the fact that an adult could not recognize the amount of abuse that I had gone under is absolutely inexcusable. Because the way I was acting at my aunt's was unreal. I became an alcoholic very quickly. Now, I had alcohol prior to this, and every time I had alcohol, I just binged. But now I had access every day to alcohol. And, my uncle's liquor cabinet, I was just filling his liquor bottles up with water and drinking straight liquor. I could not be sober. I could not deal with what was happening in my head when I was sober, because I was dealing with the fact that I had bottled up all this abuse and everybody thought I was bad. And then the fact that the programming my mom had put in my head that I was going to hell, and all of this was my fault because I wasn't a Christian. Even though, I had constantly kept asking God to save me, and, so I was a fucking mess, man. I was destroying myself, to the point 2 weeks before I got kicked out of my aunt's house. I was drinking and driving one night with my cousin and his best friend, and got in a major accident, completely totaled a Saab, a brand new Saab, and had a tree trunk come right through the middle, almost killed all three of us. A week after that, I got in another accident. Somebody else was driving that time. Major accident, we all four almost died in that. And then a few days later is when my aunt and uncle had left, and we were going to have a party at my aunt and uncle's house, and my girl cousin, who's 2 weeks younger than me, was being a stick in the mud, and she's like, "No, I don't want to," and I got upset, called her a bitch, and threw her in a closet. And when I say I threw her in a closet, I just placed her in the closet, closed the door. She opened the door, came right back out. That's all that happened. Not excusing it. Of course, that isn't something you should be doing to people. But I'm saying, like, I don't want you to think like I wrapped her up and was very physical and like trapped her in a closet for hours or even minutes. No, I called her a bitch, tossed her in a closet, closed the door. She came right back out. It was that simple. So after that, I had got a couple days later, before my aunt and uncle had gotten back from their vacation, I had left to go to my other aunt and uncle's house to hang out with my cousins that, from my stepdad's side. And while we were there, we had gone to King's Dominion. I got kicked out of King's Dominion for fighting. We got back that evening, and my aunt called me up because I was supposed to go back the next day because I was still living with my other aunt. And she said, "Richard, I know what you did. I know the deer thing." Because when I got in that accident with my cousins, I made up a story that I was trying to avoid a deer because we were on a back road. They didn't know I was drunk. And so she knows, she said, "I know you were drunk when you wrecked the Saab. And if you ever call my daughter a bitch again or touch her, I will make sure you pay for it," or whatever she said. She said, so she kicked me out of the house. And I had to make a lie right then. I got off the phone with her and had to make a lie right then to my other aunt and uncle that it was because they were extreme Christians, that my aunt's house my wealthy aunt's house was a den of heathens and devils. So I had to tell that story to get out of there. I couldn't say that I'd just gotten kicked out for that crazy shit. I had to tell them, "Hey, look, I don't feel right going back. There's demons over there. It's evil. They do bad things." So that's how I got moved in over there. So 6 months after I got out of my mom's house, within 6 months, got kicked out of my cousin's house, my aunt's house, over in my other aunt's house now. And then that just got worse because, see, at least at my rich aunt's house, my rich aunt didn't work, so she could sort of keep an eye on me here and there. But at my other cousin's house, nobody, they would lived out in the country, and like they both worked, and I could just, but they gave me a car so I could get back and forth to work, an old car. And I was on my own, dude. And it got really bad. Like I was an alcoholic from that, I was an alcoholic from an early age. I could not be sober. So sobriety hurt me so bad. It hurt my heart. It hurt my mind. My brain couldn't function sober. I could not think. I was like terrified. When I was sober, I was completely terrified. We ended up going to Canada on vacation to visit their extended family, and got fights up there. So, it was just really bad. All I could do was fight. I wanted to fight everybody over everything all the time, and drinking, and then fucking too. I mean, So I was only at that cousin's house for a few months, and then I think I was 17, and I moved out of there, moved in with a guy that I was working with, Spanish guy that I was working with. And we were clubbing 5-6 nights a week, and working, sleeping maybe 2-3 hours a night, and then going to work. I worked at a little independent computer assembly place. We actually built specialized computers at that time. This was back in the mid 90s. Severe alcoholic. That's when I met my first wife. Fighting, drinking, fucking. And then she got pregnant. So now this is important because this ties in with the brainwashing, the psychological brainwashing that my mom did to me through the whole religion and Jesus thing, and you're going to hell, because that always was in the back of my mind. Even though I was drinking, fighting, and fucking, that's all I was doing. I would always, tell Jesus I love him and I'm sorry. And so when my wife got pregnant, or girlfriend got pregnant, that's when reality hit. I joined the military immediately, and immediately the psychological abuse trauma hold that my mom had over me kicked in, like a MK Ultra subject, like a mind-controlled puppet. I went straight back to my mom and apologized to her for all the bad things I did, and all the lies I told about her, and all the things, all the tough times I put her through. And man, I mean, I'm real, guys. Like, I literally went back to my mom and begged and pleaded for forgiveness because she never came to me. She never came to me and apologized, admitted nothing. And I was desperate because I was having a kid. I thought I was going to hell. I didn't want my kid to go to hell. I wanted to do the right thing. I wanted to get my family right. I wanted my wife to find Christ, right? All this weird shit, guys. And so when I went to basic training, I left my wife, my pregnant wife, with my mother up on the mountain, which was the worst thing I could have done, because that's when they both started working together. So to fast forward through all, I mean, there's just so much. So I'm just going to fast forward to everything. I did 3 years in the military. I had reestablished that relationship with my mom. She kept a very extremely close, tight hold grip on my family, me, my wife, and my son. She would constantly come in between me and my wife, like passive aggressively to her, and then to me just be like outright like, Richard, she's got demons. Richard, she's bad. Richard, she needs help. Richard, you need to be the man of the family. Richard, you need to be the man. You need to put the pants on. Richard, you need to suck it up. Richard, you need to tell her what's right. Richard, so that kind of shit, right? And I was a young man. I was 18, 19 years old, 20 years old. So I came out of the military at 21. And then started my own business at 23. So we'll just sort of skip through this. Shit went down, was going south with my wife by then. Was in and out because, I knew I was maturing enough that I knew my mom was a complete lying hypocrite, but I had that trauma bond, that extreme bond to her. It's like super glue, dude. It's like nasty, that bond. That I just kept on coming back over all the abuse she would give me over the phone, over all the abuse that she would just constantly do, and the guilt and shame. She just kept constant pressure on me, and I would just cut her off. And then within, a month or 2 months, I just couldn't take it. Like the shame and guilt, I'd be like, oh man, I can't believe I'm doing this to my mommy. I got to apologize. It's my fault. I'm the demon. I'm the one in wrong. And so I would go back to her and apologize and, rekindle that relationship. And of course, she would immediately take her position of, placing that shame and guilt on me and making sure that, she was the authority figure again, So went through that until, let's see, my wife. Okay, so then I'm putting this all together, guys, so that you can see like the depth of the mind control, the depth of the brainwashing, the depth of my abuse, the depth of my mom's illusion she created for everybody else. Oh, this brings me back because what had happened. So after I got away, it must have scared the fuck out of my mom, because what she did was she reestablished her relationship with family, with her brother, with her dad, with her mom. She reestablished these relationships. And then once I got kicked out of my aunt's house, I guess she started reestablishing that relationship too. So what I was afraid of when I left at 16, I was afraid my brother was going to get the raw end of the deal. So I always sat with that guilt and shame of leaving my brother in that position to take that. But what had happened was she completely changed her ways because she was afraid that she was going to get her other kids taken away from her for the amount of abuse placed on me. So she completely changed her ways. She must have brainwashed my brother into thinking I was some evil character. Now think about it, guys. My brother was 13 years old, and when I left, he must have been scared as fuck that all the abuse and everything I was going through was going to come down on him. So God knows the kind of brainwashing she did to that poor boy. Because remember also, he was an extreme introvert, extremely introverted, extremely kept to himself, extremely quiet boy. After this, he became an extrovert. She completely changed his character. She completely changed who he was through her brainwashing, through her manipulation tactics, through her whatever else she did. Because she reestablished these things and created this social. Now, whereas we were hermits and kept away, she created this whole social thing like, look, nothing's wrong. Everything's fine in the house. Look, we're hanging out with family. Look, Jeremy, isn't everything fine, Jeremy? And Jeremy's sitting there going, yeah, everything's fine, Mommy. So severe mental trauma and mental abuse on my brother. And I have no idea. He never talked to me about it, but I do know that they were on vacations. They were doing all kinds of stuff after I left. Stuff that I never dreamed or even thought possible. Hanging out with family and stuff, you know what I mean? So again, just creating her world, her fake, false world for people to believe. And I'll start another video.